Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to share a little story because I was on a call with a client the other day, and she brought something to my attention that I almost had forgotten that was a very pivotal transition in my recovery. And it was where like a shift happened. And so she brought it to my attention because she's in a similar spot. Okay, so she had gotten her period back. She's about like 10 months in after she had gotten her period. So she was already recovering, but this is the 10-month mark after getting the period. And we were talking about how getting your period back in recovery is often only the beginning, oftentimes in your recovery. So it's the beginning to more healing. It's just like a transitional mark. It's a motivational point as well in your recovery that you've gotten your period back, that this is working, and that your body is healing enough to be able to turn back on the reproductive system and heal your hormones, balance out your hormones. Perhaps not perfectly in the beginning, right? That's why you want to make sure you get 3 consecutive periods, and even after 3 months may not still be normal. It may take longer to still balance out and become a normal period again. But regardless, the whole thing was that getting your period back in recovery may just be the beginning. So you still want to be careful and stay on top of yourself and stay on top of your recovery to make sure that your intentions are in the right place, you're coming from the right place, that you don't get your period back and be like, okay, well, I'm recovered, so now I can restrict again, or now I can go back to my extreme exercise regime and start exercising every single day again. You know what I mean? So it's not a period where you should be just let everything go, but to just take that as motivation to keep going, that this is working and that you still need healing, that your body is healing, and that it is taking that energy in to heal and balance out. So anyways, with that said, if you're later on in your recovery, let's say you got your period back, or maybe you never even lost your period, but you're later on in your recovery and you're doing everything right, you've let go of these fears and you've challenged yourself with food fears and anxieties and the obsessive behaviors of calorie counting and body checking and all of these things. And a lot of the starvation symptoms have eased, and you know, you've gotten a new take on life and you're inspired again to live your life, and you can live your life again because you're not weighed down by the obsessive food thoughts or the extreme hunger necessarily. But you get to this point in your recovery where things have been going good, it's not perfect, you know you still need recovering, but you know, things are a lot better than they used to be. And then all of a sudden, 10 months, a year in, and you're hit with a wave of exhaustion, right? Like extreme exhaustion, the kind of exhaustion that's even worse than when you first came to recovery, or perhaps even 6 months into your recovery where you felt very fatigued and tired and exhausted. And then all of a sudden, like things were going good, you thought, but then you're hit with this exhaustion, this wave of extreme exhaustion that it's like no other. Even trying to explain it to people, like you can't even, it doesn't even do it justice because it's that extreme, right? So if you can relate to this, I can relate as well, and so can my client, that she's going through this right now. And it reminded me of this because I went through this. I just want to relate to you that this is normal in your recovery. This is, it doesn't happen to everyone, but it seems to happen though, more often than not. That later in your recovery, even after you've gotten your period back and it's like a year later, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's in your face and you're like, whoa, why is this happening? This can't be recovery. It's so much later on. Like there must be something wrong with me. You know, I got to go to the doctors, and which if you want to go to the doctors, by all means, go to the doctors. But this is just my experience, right? I'm not a doctor. I have to disclaim that. It's just my experience and what I've seen with working with people. It's pretty common. So if you're thinking like something's terribly wrong with you, I just want to relate, because when this happened to me, I still was like, here and there exercising too much, but I was in denial, like it wasn't that much because it wasn't too much a day, or, it wasn't for that long, or, but it was still like I was doing some high intensity type workouts. So I justified it as, well, I'm not doing it for like hours a day or even an hour a day, or I'm not doing it 6 times a week. So, and she was doing the same. Like, she was saying that she had been, still going on very long walks, or, things here and there. And so it's almost like this, going through this point in your recovery is like a wake-up call, right? It's like the body has been trying to communicate with you for so long that it still didn't want even that much activity in your recovery, and still you were pushing because you'd gotten to a certain point where you got your period back, and so you kind of just went down that road. You didn't get as extreme as you used to be, but it still was too much for where you were at in your recovery. And this happened to her, and it happened to me, and I've heard this from other clients as well. It's almost like your body's like, you know what, that's it. And the body sends this extreme fatigue and exhaustion to where you can't even fight it this time. It's not like before where you were able to still push through the fatigue. If you were, hopefully you weren't, you actually listened to the fatigue the first time around, but you may have slowly gone down this road again, and then you're hit with this wave again. And the body forces you, literally forces you to completely rest, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so in my situation, I couldn't find anything on it in recovery, like a year in, extreme exhaustion, a wave of it. And so I thought something was completely wrong with me. I was like, okay, I gotta go get this checked out, because this doesn't seem right. Like, I can't even get out of bed. It was that bad. I can't even explain how bad it was. It was just, I couldn't get out of bed. And even thinking of getting out of bed exhausted me, right? And so this went on too for a couple months straight, where I could not do anything. So even if I felt guilty, or, I didn't get to work out even at least once a week, I couldn't for months. So I was on complete bed rest. Anyways, I went to the doctors, and they couldn't find anything of why. The only thing that they could have potentially found what was wrong, what was causing this, was a dormant, not even active, dormant mono. So mononucleosis, I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a virus that one of the symptoms is extreme exhaustion to where you have to go on bed rest. So, and if you do too much activity, physical activity, then you could actually burst your spleen. But again, that's the only thing that they could have potentially found, and they thought maybe it could be that because it was in my system, but it was dormant, so it wasn't active. So that just didn't make sense, right? Because it was dormant. So they didn't really know what was wrong, and it was just part of the recovery process. It was like my body was just completely done and fed up with me justifying these little bits of activity that I was trying to do when my body was still trying to recover, even though I had gotten my period for more than 3 consecutive months, and I started to add back in stuff here and there, and I was in denial. And so, yeah, at this point, my body just completely one day just was like, nope, that's it. And I couldn't get out of bed for the next couple months. That was a very healing time, because up until that point, I was still facing extreme hunger, right? I would wake up in the morning just ravenous, right? And I'd never been a morning person of eating, and neither was my client. And I had to ask her this, because now she's not feeling as hungry, and she's kind of more on that side where food has lost its novelty, and she doesn't feel like she needs to constantly thinking about food, and food isn't as exciting anymore, That was the same with me as well. But up until then, I was ravenous. She said the same thing. She said, I'm not as hungry in the morning. It's really hard to get myself to eat so much in the morning. And it's really hard to eat now, all of a sudden. So I asked, I was like, did you used to be like this? Or in the beginning of your recovery, or the first part of your recovery, did you have extreme hunger in the morning? And she was like, oh yeah. She was like, yeah, I consumed a lot of calories. The majority of my calories were before 11 a.m. Just ravenous, just stuffing my face because I just couldn't get enough of food in the morning. And now all of a sudden, that's gone away. The novelty of the food has gone down. It's not as exciting. You're not as hungry as you once were in the earlier stages of your recovery. And so that was the same thing that happened to me as well. This was like the turning point. So my body forced me to completely rest again, because I already had earlier on, but not enough. So it completely forced me to rest. This is when, like I was saying, I had been facing extreme hunger. She had been facing extreme hunger up until that point. And then when that wave hit, after some time, that's when the hunger and satiety cues finally started to show themselves or become more pronounced, or more, you could notice them more and be more in tune with them. And it started to make more sense, all of this stuff. Like, you could actually feel that. The satiety started to go up a little more. The extreme hunger started to go down a little bit more. And that was like the pivotal point. So the complete rest, this wave of exhaustion, and then the satiety and the hunger began to balance out, all at this turning point. So this is where everything started to really take a turn, and I was able to experience this new part of recovery. And that's where I was like, wow, like, it's really happening. And the water retention at this point started to finally like fully go away. It was slow. So the water retention at this point, so I'm talking again, like a year after I got my period, did this stuff happen at this turning point. The water retention, the overshoot started to balance out, and everything just kind of like started to come together. And thinking back, it's just really interesting to think about it, because that was really that turning point. And it's like, and for her, it's the same thing as well. Like, and you almost become fearful of it, like, oh no, like I need to do recovery right, and I need to be good at recovery, and I can't sabotage my recovery, because you have the good intentions, like you want to heal, you don't want to ever jeopardize your recovery or go back to where you're coming from. So, but when your hunger's coming down and your satiety's going up, you almost think that you're doing something wrong and you got to continue eating like you always have been in recovery. That's just not always the case. Like, you know, you don't want to ever go back to restricting, but the whole point of this recovery thing is that your body will guide you when it's ready. And if it gets to this point, you've done recovery as you're supposed to, like the step by step, like you've done everything as it's supposed to happen, as it's naturally supposed to happen, which she did and which certain clients do, and what I ended up doing after yo-yoing for a long time. Finally gave it a full chance. This is like that transitional point. This is what you do this whole thing for, right? And then the body starts to guide you with hitting you with that exhaustion so you can't do anything about it. Potentially, not everyone. But then the hunger and the satiety just kind of goes back to normal. And it's just that beginning of you really kind of getting to that place of normalcy again. Like, things are going back to normal. So if you were this person that wasn't really hungry in the morning, it starts to happen again. And it's okay to listen to that, right? You don't have to listen to a meal plan or listen to this person says you have to eat this way, or this person says you have to eat this way, or, you know, you're just going back to your normalcy, whatever works for you and whatever used to work for you before the diets. And if that was, you weren't like a super morning person liking to eat a lot, you're probably going to go back to that. If you're someone that loved to like graze a lot throughout the day, then you're probably going to go back to that. If you're someone that, however, I don't even know, like there's so many different ways, but your body's going to want to go back to that. And the body will guide you to that. It'll guide you back to that when it's ready. And this only happens, the whole thing is when the body's ready. And I can't say that this will happen for you, but I wanted to share this for anyone that's going through this and they're like a year in or year and a half in or whenever. And, you know, it's almost as if it seems like your recovery just took a 180 and you feel like you're back to square one. It may feel like that initially, but it may not be that. It may just be that last turning point, that last stage of recovery, the last stretch of your recovery. And if you just stick with it and continue to allow your body to guide you and trust your body, continue to trust your body, and that's okay. It's okay to do that. It's okay to listen now. You know, I know that you're probably fearful, like, because you never want to go back to where you're coming from, like I was saying, but this is why you're doing this. And your body is healing and it's going back to normal and it's guiding you and it wants you to come along. So, you know, just slowly follow your body at this time. Be gentle with yourself. Continue to rest if you're severely exhausted, but be okay with that and give yourself permission to rest and fully embrace this, because when other time in your life can you have permission to just completely rest from extreme exhaustion? Like, this is a great excuse to heal. So take advantage of this time, rest, and then listen to where your body's taking you. Don't take this end of recovery as another extreme and try to maintain what you did in early recovery forever. Like, for some people maybe, but for other people they're just getting back to normalcy the way they were before the diets. So it's okay to listen to that. So I hope that this all makes sense. If anything, I just wanted to share this for people that may be scared of the extreme exhaustion even after being long-term into their recovery, and just know that it's happened to a lot of us and that it does get better, and to see it more as an opportunity and a great place to be in rather than something to be feared. Okay? So I hope this video has helped you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you going through something like this? Does this resonate with you? Yeah, just let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.